becomes fascinating, the Joe Flacco trade, right?
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me because I now look at it from this perspective. There's so many layers to that Joe Flacco trade, right? Number one is Jake Browning. Yeah, he has 8 interceptions.
Jesus.
Do you know who's
Okay.
right on his heels in those picks?
Oh no.
It's
Who?
Joe Flacco. 6
Yeah,
picks.
he is.
So the
Yeah, he
Cincinnati
is.
Bengals now have on their roster 2 individuals that have thrown a combined, 14 interceptions over the course of this entire season. And it's so ironic. The Cincinnati Bengals, first of all, this is the first trade that the Cincinnati Bengals, including Browns, have ever made in their team's history. In division, right? But the irony with this is somebody tweeted this out. The Cincinnati Bengals had quarterback problems, and said, yeah, let's reach out to the Cleveland Browns. I mean,
But honestly, though, like they gotta be desperate, right?
you got to be desperate. But TJ, look, there were other options, right? Like, to me, you had Russell Wilson, you had Jameis Winston, you had Kenny Pickett. Even though I think the Raiders might play Kenny Pickett sooner rather than later because Geno has been not good, right?
Yeah,
And then you have Kirk Cousins down in Atlanta. All quarterbacks that I think could play better than what Joe Flacco has played like this year. Am I tripping?
fair. No, you're not tripping. It's just it is a Bengals move though, to be honest.
And the trade wouldn't have been in division, right? So, like, from a Cincinnati perspective, I'm trying to make sense of what this does for their team, right?
Nothing.
Joe Flacco, bless his heart, is going to have one hell of a time behind that O-line that couldn't keep anybody upright right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said putting Joe Flacco behind that O-line is elder abuse.
No, it is though.
Right, so now he's going in good. I'm happy for Joe. I think this is very much a situation where he's like, I get another opportunity to start after I got benched in Cleveland. And I'm playing up until Joe Burrow may or may not come back. Right?
Yeah.
I get it. It makes sense from that perspective. But at the same, for Joe's perspective, but at the same time, like the Cincinnati Bengals, this is a guy that isn't mobile at all, and that really hindered Cleveland's offense, in my opinion. Right? And on top of that, I mean, is he that much of an upgrade over Jake Browning? I feel like there were other quarterbacks available. Like Jameis, say what you will about Jameis. Yes, he's a turnover machine, but I don't think he has bad pocket presence. I think he's good. Not good, but he is somewhat serviceable at managing bad O-lines. Right?
For sure.
He's not a statue back there. Like, he can move now. He's not going to kill you with his legs, but he can get out the pocket if he needs to. Right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that would have made sense. Russell Wilson for sure can get outside the pocket if he needs to. Kirk Cousins probably not. I understand maybe not taking a chance on Kirk. But even a guy like Kenny Pickett, too. Like, I mean, he could be more. Like, I didn't see the point of trading in division for a quarterback that I don't think is that much of an upgrade over what you currently have. But I could be wrong about that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what if he goes out there and balls out for the Bengals? I don't think that's going to happen.
Hey, one thing's for sure.
Don't you think that's their way of having, like, trying to have a power move over you guys?
Nah, for sure.
Again,
but I mean,
don't
bro,
think that's going to happen.
One thing's for sure. Joe Flacco's going to throw that ball. He's going to throw that ball to Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins will be happy with their targets. Now, I saw a stat during the game. I don't know if it rang true throughout the entire game that what's his name? At one point in the game, Jamar Chase had more tackles in that game than receptions. Didn't that happen?
No, I've seen that.
Bro, crazy. So, like, it might be another one of those situations where the accuracy may be in question in terms of when he gets those passes. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not really moved by that. Like, because Joe throws an awful lot of interceptions too, right? So it's like, think about how crazy this is, man. Joe Flacco turned the ball over in every game he played this season, and Dylan Gabriel played one game and had more touchdowns than Joe Flacco threw. Or no, same amount. I think they both had 2.
That's correct.
As a rookie,
I don't know what the Bengals are going to do, but I'm sure we'll get to that later.
No, they had to make a move though. I agree with that, but I mean, I just don't think this is the right move, personally.
Yeah.
Another layer too of this Joe Flacco trade that I think might also be coming into play, right? Something that I just thought about, and obviously no one knows what's going on for sure, but this is me trying to like make an educated guess, especially with the fact that, initially it was not announced, but the expectation was Shador would take over as QB2 from Joe Flacco. And today, after listening to Kevin Stefanski's press conference, he was a little bit more non-committal on naming who the QB2 was, right? And in that respect, I think what we're seeing play out, and this is, like I said, this is educated guess. We don't know what's going on for sure, but this is kind of my own headcanon / conspiracy of what's going on in Berea, right? So a radio host, Anthony Rizzo, he's not known to be an insider and have sources per se, but he did a week ago say that Dillon Gabriel was going to be the starter. He ended up being named the starter. And I do kind of feel like on some level, maybe he has a finger on the pulse, but I'm taking everything he said with a grain of salt personally, right? But he alluded to, I want to say a couple weeks ago, that there was a divide amongst the coaching staff and the front office about how to handle these young quarterbacks. So from his perspective, right, or based on what he was told, is very much a desire from the front office to see the young quarterbacks play, which makes sense, right? You invested, not high draft capital in these guys, but draft capital, right? You invested a third in Dillon Gabriel, who's currently the starter. You invested a fifth in Shador Sanders, who by most accounts I think is, listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, what they're saying, at most accounts is considered a lottery ticket of sorts, right? So you have those two in your building, and you have the first round pick going into next year, which means you need to see and gain as much of a sample size as possible to know what you have in those two quarterbacks. And with that being the case, I understand the desire of wanting to see those two touch the field as soon as possible, right? So that's their perspective. And then you had the coaching perspective with head coach Kevin Stefanski. And all this to me is based off of the fact that I feel like initially it was the expectation amongst people who made the report that Shador would take over as QB2, right? And now the conversation topic, based off, what Kevin Stefanski had alluded to in his press conference today, is that he's a little bit more non-committal and may be leaning towards Bailey Zappi, right? He was heavily referencing player development, right, in his responses to the question about Shador. And I wonder if the coaching staff is very much, no, we need to develop these guys. We need to make these guys, give it a slow burn as much as we possibly can, and then develop them. And also, too, one thing I've kind of feel like is my read on Kevin Stefanski in general is I think he prefers experienced quarterbacks, right? And I think that actually plays a role into why he liked Dillon Gabriel so much, right? 6 years of college experience. Who has Kevin Stefanski had the most amount of success with, right? In Minnesota, Kirk Cousins, a very experienced quarterback at that stage, right? In 2023, Joe Flacco, right? The most experienced quarterback on that roster at that point in time. It wasn't with Deshaun Watson, who had been a Pro Bowler, who was, coming off injuries and had very inconsistent up and down play, but it was with Joe Flacco, a guy that he felt like he spoke the same language to. So I think Kevin Stefanski would prefer a more seasoned, experienced quarterback in that position. Hence why I think him and Dillon Gabriel kind of speak the same language. Because yes, Dillon Gabriel's a rookie, but he's played, the most FBS games in, college football history, right? Or he started, the most FBS games in college football history. So I think there's a dynamic there between what the front office wants and what the coaching staff wants, right? And I'm very curious to see who wins out. And I found it very interesting, too, that initially, now who knows, things can change, that Bailey Zappi wasn't promoted as well to the active roster, right? I do wonder what the conversations in Berea are looking like, but I lend credence to the fact that they're very likely, I don't want to say very likely, there very possibly could be some disconnect between what the coaching staff wants and what the front office wants, right? Like maybe they have divisive feelings on what Shador can be in that building, but from the front office perspective and even ownership, right? You invested draft capital in these guys, and you need to know what you have before you go into next year. And that may entail playing Shador before you felt like they were ready. And I think that played into the role of moving on from Joe Flacco. Now, all in all, right, I've never subscribed to the thought process that Kevin Stefanski doesn't like Shador, he's out to get him, or this conspiracy that he wants to sabotage Shador and bury him into the depth chart or whatever. No, I think he's actually heavily invested in his development. Truly, I think Kevin Stefanski, if you watch that press conference earlier today, I definitely think there's a level of care that he has in wanting to develop him into the best quarterback he can be, while also trying to do what's best for the team, right? However, I see where ownership and the front office, I see where they're coming from, right? And you need to see these guys play because you invested draft capital in them. And you need to see it sooner rather than later. So what do I think the Browns' actual backup quarterback plans are, their QB2 plans are? Well, I think this is a big week for Shador, right? I think this is his opportunity to really step it up. So when Kevin Stefanski sits up there at the podium today and says we'll work through all of that in terms of deciding who the backup quarterback is, I think that's him saying I genuinely at this moment don't know. But the plan is to see what Shador can handle if he responds to being a backup quarterback and the workload that entails. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people don't understand being the backup quarterback from multiple accounts is one of the hardest jobs in the league, because it's not a game plan that's tailored to your success. It's tailored to who the original starter was going to be, right? And I think if it came down to it, even if Bailey Zappi is QB2 this week, if Dylan Gabriel were to get hurt for an extended period, I do believe Shador Sanders would be the starter, right? It's just one of those things where they want a full week of preparation for Shador as opposed to just throwing him into the fire, especially in a hostile environment like Pittsburgh, right? But that being the case, I do think they're going to see if this is something he can handle. And if he shows that he can handle it, great. They're going to make him the QB2. If not, I think they hand that duty and responsibility to Bailey Zappi.
Agreed.
But that does it. Our thoughts on this Joe Flacco trade. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Do you think this trade was a win-win for both teams? And who do you think the QB2 in Cleveland is going to be? When do you think Shador Sanders eventually starts a game for this Cleveland Browns team, if at all? Let us know in the comments section below. Leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. But until next time, we hope you keep it inside the lines.